So we farm about 2 acres of land on 8 or so different plots throughout Franklinton within a mile radius. And most of what we grow then goes to food pantries in the neighborhood, and then we sell produce 6 days a week at a produce stand for 3 hours each day, June through October. And then, you know, so not only are we farming and growing food for the neighbors, but then there's the education aspect of why we should eat it, how to prepare food, and that sort of thing.
The majority of our founding community was attending an evangelical church in Westerville. I had stepped out of that church as a youth minister to kind of pursue urban ministry on the Near East side of town and work to begin some projects, find employment in that neighborhood. And over the course of a year down there, it was one of those seasons of everything just falling through. And around the end of that year, I started to reconnect with a number of old friends who I found out had been asking all the questions I had about a year earlier, and we were all trying to figure out what it meant to live incarnationally, what it meant to kind of take on the wounds of a neighborhood, to really understand it and try to help bring change from an inside out, and to find a way to do that together.
Yeah, I had just graduated from nursing school at Kent State, and I moved back to Westerville with my parents, and I started volunteering for a homeless organization that went around the city to different camps, homeless camps, and we served meals. And we were doing this on like a Wednesday, a Saturday night, and it was just maybe a half an hour each stop throughout the city, and we served meals and just had a chance to talk to some folks. And eventually, after getting to know the people that we were feeding, I felt very, I guess I couldn't reconcile my difference, my lifestyle and theirs. When I would go back to Westerville, a suburb of Columbus, and to a very nice house with heat, and it was middle of winter, and extra rooms, and it just didn't feel right. And ultimately, I felt like the way that I was living wasn't lining up with what I believed. And I genuinely felt like I wanted and needed to be closer to that suffering, or just closer and more available.
I moved into the neighborhood in 2008 and immediately noticed that there wasn't any bike shop in the neighborhood or any bike shop on the near west side of Columbus at all. And I also noticed that there were a lot of people using bikes as their everyday transportation, as well as kids riding bikes just for fun like kids do, but these bikes didn't have seats, pedals, chains were, you know, breaking and all sorts of disrepair. And so myself and my housemates, who are also aspiring mechanics, just began fixing people's bikes off the front of our porch. And then, you know, things just kind of snowballed and they kept gaining momentum. As more people became involved and were able to get more support, we eventually moved into a space, and a few iterations later we moved into this space, 897 West Broad, in January of 2011, and opened up officially to the neighborhood.
This is the Good Earth Farm, where we grow and we donate food, and it's run by a group of people. We call ourselves the Common Friars. We're a religious community that comes together to live into a balance of work, study, and prayer, in a rule of life that we've written together and try our best to live by. The way this all got started was in 2008, and my wife and I felt called to move in this direction. First, I'd been farming for 10 years at that point in time, and was aware of a pretty acute food shortage in our food pantries here. And so I wanted to figure out what somebody with, you know, experience growing food could do about that problem. My wife and I, for most of our married life, have dealt with one of her big medical issues, ulcerative colitis, a pretty advanced case of that. And so as soon as we got married, we had her her first large flare-up, and we also got kicked off our parents' insurance, and so we started our married life with a large amount of medical debt and a pre-existing condition that made things really tough for us. And for people that wanted to live simply and do farming, that was a big test, whether we could continue to do that in the face of just a ton of medical debt and a career path or a vocational path that doesn't really include health insurance most of the time. And we stuck to it and we did it, but 3 times over we saved up and lost everything to major flare-ups of this condition. And so eventually I took a job as a herdsman, and that really gave me the opportunity to pay off medical debt and finally give us health insurance. But I knew that I was kind of falling short of what I was called to do. Working 3 months straight, having a day off, milking cows 2 times a day. For somebody that got into farming, to share with people about where their food comes from and the sort of spiritual significance of that, I knew that I was kind of falling short, and the anxiety was just building and building. And we were in the Cleveland Clinic for Sarah's 7th colonoscopy in 7 years, and in the waiting room I just had an experience that I felt the presence of God that said, go out and do what you feel called to do. And more than that experience being about words, it was more about calm. For somebody that was feeling just horrendous anxiety, it was about calm. And I was so excited. I wrote it down immediately when I was in the waiting room, and I came in and Sarah was just kind of coming out of her fog of the anesthesia, and I told her this with such excitement. And she immediately threw up. It wasn't the right moment to share this divine revelation.
I met Paul and Sarah the week I got into Athens. I was working for another organization, and had a falling out with that organization through a long series of months, over several months. Paul and Sarah were very much a supporter and had become friends at that time. And my friend Kyle and I, we would come here and volunteer every Monday on the farm itself, but it was a place that was quite a contrast to the community that we were a part of. And just it felt very much open to a place to discern and ask questions, and Paul and Sarah's engagement with us and presence towards our questions and where we were in our life was something that anybody is going to be affected by, someone being present to their life,
I think, one of the large motivating factors for people to come out is to get their hands dirty, but also to engage where their food comes from, engage with a more kind of holistic understanding of body and soul, and so maybe that it wasn't as much about discipleship, but it was amazing, folks coming out and weeding in the garden. And we're a religious community. We like to think about theology and prayer and all this stuff, but all you had to do was put people in the garden and have them weed a row of carrots across from one another, and the most divine and holy conversations would emerge without any prompting.
When I became chaplain at Ohio Wesleyan in 1988, the chaplain before me, Dr. James Leslie, had a tradition of buying a large package of UNICEF cards at Christmas, usually in October, November, and having them on a bookshelf in our chaplain's office. And then university staff and students and faculty would come by and pick up their UNICEF cards. And when I took over that project in 1988, I was doing that for a year or two, when a woman in the community by the name of Lynn Cook, who is really the founder of Global Village in Delaware, asked me if I could maybe do additional things beyond just the UNICEF cards, and maybe do some artisan products from various countries in the world. And she'd heard about a program called 10,000 Villages, and so we connected with them and started expanding my bookshelf into basically the whole front office of the chaplain's office. Nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come, and so it gets bigger and broader and deeper and lives beyond any particular individual, so that it's the community people coming together. I don't have any accounting skills, but I know somebody who does. I don't know what the legal ramifications of operating the store are, but I know an attorney who might be willing to work with us. So those kind of bringing skills and passions and interests together is what then not just illustrates the gifts of this community, but I believe firmly it strengthens this community.
The bishop had a vision for using the Procter land to grow sustainably and have like an organic vegetable production operation going on. And so when I was hired, my boss, Chris Tokar, said that we were going to start small, start with 2 acres, and kind of this was the vision of the bishop, and we kind of see how it would go to just grow vegetables for the kitchen for people who came. Well, I would say we've expanded pretty quickly. Like, it was a pretty rapid jump from year to year. So the first year we were roughly 2 acres. We had the greenhouse. We had 50 chickens. That was about it. And then we gave some food to the center. Whatever the chef wanted, or the kitchen manager wanted, we would give her. And then we also started going to local farmers market just in downtown London. And then so that was last year, and then this year I was really pushing for a CSA to start offering that. So we jumped up, and now we have about 6 acres in production, and we have a 75, 80 person CSA. We've got additional acreage. Like the 6 acres. We've got raised beds in the back of the kitchen. And we've got like 125 chickens, so they're for laying eggs. And then we've got like over 125 fruit trees that we planted this spring, so we're kind of getting into the fruit orchard.